And now we will look into some certain established principles of law. Can mere inaction or failure or suppression of fact, as we have said, in Jay Prakash Industries case also the same thing has been followed by the Supreme Court, and mere inaction cannot be the ground to really allege the suppression. It has to be intentional. Jay Prakash Industries Supreme Court further said that bona fide doubt as to non-accessibility of goods due to divergent view of the high courts, extended period cannot be invoked. And here comes the first major defense against the invocation of larger period of limitation. That I was under bona fide belief or I acted good faith while not discharging my tax liability. For instance, there is a dispute regarding the classification. And in that classification, take a classic case of the sanitizers. You know that it had hit the news. Sanitizers were classified under a particular heading, attracting 12% by the manufacturers or the suppliers. And the DGGI swung into action, saying that it was liable to 18%. All the clearances had been made by the suppliers under the cover of tax invoice with the proper e-way. It was a genuine dispute regarding the classification. The manufacturer or supplier were under one impression, department formed another impression, another view. Now, in this case, one wonders how can Section 74 could have been invoked at all. There are many reasons why Section 74 cannot come into play in these type of cases. First of all, even for the purpose of invocation of the normal period time limit is not over, as I have explained earlier. When normal period of limitation is not over and the suppliers have not acted in a mala fide manner, how can there be the invocation of larger period of limitation in Section 74 directly? It was a case of bona fide belief, and based on which the penalties and 100% penalties related provision in Section 74 could not have been invoked. Another routine case which every day we are coming across, and I am actually really surprised to see that nobody appears to have taken that ground at any time. When the goods are detained by the authorities, mainly state government authorities, at the border or Cheknaka or on the during transit, the goods are detained for mostly on the flimsy ground, and then the taxpayer is made to pay the tax amount with penalty, and then the goods, and later on suppose follow the so-called notice. How can there be a so-called notice under Section 74, number one? And before Section 74, how can a taxpayer be asked to make the payment of 15% penalty? If the audit objects that there is some short payment of tax or wrong availment of ITC, how can there be a case of suppression? It is a genuine case. It will depend upon case to case. The Section 74 is being invoked by the departmental authorities as if Section 73 does not even exist. And somehow or other, we also fail to, put our objection very strongly against that. Next, whether the extended, previous one, sorry. If the person has acted bona fide in good faith, and if you go through all these judgments, you will find that this aspect has been beautifully explained by the Supreme Court in these cases. In the case of Camphor drugs and liniments and Padmini products, there was an issue regarding the leviability, taxability. The party had also acted on the basis of the trade notice issued by the board at that time. And Supreme Court said a party has acted bona fide and there cannot be. However, one has to, bona fide belief cannot be the blind belief. There has to be some basis for entertaining that bona fide belief. And in that case, even if there exists a bona fide belief, there is a good faith in which the taxpayer has acted, then even though the demand may be sustainable, but not for the larger period, it will remain sustainable only for the normal period of limitation. Next. Will non-supply of information not mandated under the statute amount to suppression of facts? If the law does not require to disclose something, then it cannot be a matter of suppression. This principle has now been recognized, fortunately, under explanation 2274, that if there cannot be a suppression of fact which I am not required to disclose under the law. Srushti Dhawan and Apex Electrical Gujarat, India. Can the suppression be alleged if all material facts are disclosed? If all the material facts are disclosed, then suppression law will not, because it is for the department then to really take the they stand in the matter at the earliest possible moment. And here, friends, I will strongly advise in these 3 decades, the only thing which I have really learned with the to deal with the department is how to put the ball in their court. It is a classic lawn tennis game. How effectively you put the ball in the department's court will decide the fate of the case majority of the time, or the fate of the proceeding. Don't take anything for granted. Indirect tax is a very complex piece of legislation. One should not take anything for granted. One should not be under that illusion that why to tell the department, सूते हुए सिंह को क्यों जगाना है. Please understand, they are always awake. Only they will decide when to knock at your door. That should be our presumption. The department will decide when to knock at the taxpayer's door. Taxpayers should not be remain under that illusion that why to make him awake. If there is a doubt, if there is any issue, any confusion, write to the department. Don't ask for their opinion. One should never ask for the opinion of the department. Put your case in a simple language with the proper details and say that okay, this is our belief and this is how we are going to act. Don't ask for the approval. Don't ask for their consent. Don't wait for that. But put what you propose to do and what is your belief in a given case when there is a doubt, and then leave it to them. They may not accept the letter saying that now everything is online. Everything is online does not mean that offline business is stopped. One should never allow the department to refuse the receipt of the letter. And this is all very, very important. If they do not accept the letter, put the objection in writing and send it through the speed post with acknowledgement. But don't take things for granted. That is the point I would like to insist upon. Can mere claiming wrong classification or wrong exemption be considered? Classic case of sanitizer. If it is wrongly classified, it does not become automatically a case of suppression or misstatement. One of the major cases was Northern Plastic and even Denson Polluted Technique. Next. Can the extended period be invoked if the penalties are dropped? You know that under service tax there was section 8I under which the penalties could be dropped by the officer. In the context of that also, in Kapadia Enterprises and other such cases, these judgments say, okay, once the penalties are dropped, which were actually sought to be levied on account of the demand being based on the willful suppression of X, etc., that itself says that there is no evasion. And if there is no evasion, and because of that penalties are dropped, then department cannot actually drop the penalty on one hand and confirm the demand for the larger period of limitation. Both cannot go together. Department cannot blow hot, blow cold simultaneously. Can the suppression of X and extended period of limitation be alleged in the second or subsequent notice? This is again interesting. If today a so cause notice is issued for the extended period by covering last 5 years effectively, the second so cause notice, which is a periodical so cause notice, can it be again issued on the same set of facts if the department has missed it? Can it invoke the larger period of limitation? In all these judgments, the Supreme Court has very clearly said that the subsequent so cause notice, repeated charges of the willful suppression are not maintainable in law. It is only, and that's why this principle has been recognized under statement of demand. If you see subsection 3 of the section 73 and subsection 3 of section 74, there is a statement of demand. That statement of demand is basically nothing but the periodical demand, which is to be issued on the basis of the previous so cause notice, the first so cause notice. And once it is issued, then the suppression charges cannot be again repeatedly. However, one has to be careful here. In Kshatriya dehydrated export case, even in the subsequent so cause notice, the suppression charges were upheld on the ground that the party had failed to provide the information deliberately to the department, which prevented the department from issuing the so cause notice within the normal period. And again, therefore, one has to be very, very careful, and one should always provide all the right information at the right time properly without delaying the matter too much. But otherwise, repeated charges of suppression, willful suppression cannot be made by the department. Next. Is ignorance of law an excuse? Can somebody say that I was really not aware of? We are all under that illusion maxim that ignorance of law is not an excuse. In Supreme Court in D. Kawasji case, and which was also similarly in tribunal in Peter and Miller Baker case, they have laid down. In fact, Kawasi's case, Supreme Court has said that there is no such really maxim that the ignorance of law is not an excuse. Every person is not expected to know each and every law. Otherwise, the question of demand or question of proceeding cannot arise. And where this law has come from, even I personally have not been able to really fathom that, so far not understood. But yes, these two judgments clearly says ignorance of law can also be an excuse in a given case. Can extended period of limitation be invoked if the income or facts are declared in the balance sheet? Yes, in December 2020, recently 5 months back, there have been the spate of some thousands of notices across the country based on the ITR and the TDS. And in these judgments, including quite a few other judgments, it has been laid down. If the so-called notice is issued on the basis of the ITR or the balance sheet of the company, and which is a public document where all the material details have been properly declared, in that case, the larger period of limitation cannot be invoked. If there is a retrospective amendment of law, can the extended period be invoked? This has happened in service tax time and again. Take a case under GST. By Finance Act 2021, Section 7, Schedule 2, these have been amended so as to be retrospectively, so as to bring the club and members club and societies within the purview of the law. No doubt, these provisions have not become operative. They have only become the part of law on 28 March 2021. Let me say that none of the GST related amendments which are effected by the Finance Act 2021 have become effective as on date. Whether it is a compulsory export under LUT or whether it is a amendment relating to society, etc., principle of mutuality. Not a single amendment has become effective. They will become effective on the date to be notified by the central government as per the recommendation by the central government on the recommendation of the council. And I am expecting those dates not before maybe December 2021, because all the states and union territories will also have to pass the similar amendments. Now, suppose on 1st December 2021, Section 7 and Schedule 2 related amendments are notified as effective. It will then take effect from 1st July 2027. It will take effect from that date. Now, in that case, can the department LS suppression? No doubt, department have the sufficient time even for the normal period of limitation. But in this case, when the retrospective amendment is made by creating a liability, based on which department cannot go back for 5 years and say that you have suppressed something. This is the ratio of this judgment. Even in Vinod Paper Mill, Supreme Court has said the same thing, and which was also followed by the Supreme Court in a celebrity case of J.K. Cotton and Spinning Mills. Next. Whether there are conflicting views or judgment, if there are more than one views or there are conflicting judgments of the coordinate benches of the tribunal or different high courts, can the suppression be alleged? This is an established principle of law that when there are conflicting views on a particular dispute, then a larger period of limitation cannot be invoked. Another interesting case is non-deposit of tax by the supplier. Can the extended period be invoked against the buyer? This is in the context of the service tax, where Tribunal Ahmedabad has taken the view that if the supplier has not paid the tax, then buyer cannot be proceeded against, and that also by alleging suppression of facts, unless the department establishes that buyer was hands in gloves with the supplier, and there was a collusion between the buyer and the supplier. This is the same principle which will continue to hold field even under GST. The recent judgment of Dai Bethel Enterprises only take the help in to some extent. It is not a concluding judgment of the Madras High Court, where Madras High Court can be said to have said once the buyer cannot be proceeded against at all. It was a peculiar facts of that case, which are very good facts of the case. But the law all over, even international weight jurisdiction, where the European Court of Justice have time and again said that unless and until the collusion or the conspiracy between the recipient and the supplier is established in defrauding the revenue, the buyer cannot be denied the benefit of ITC. Under European VAT, it is a VAT deduction merely because the supplier has not paid the tax, or supplier has committed some fault, or supplier has committed some fraud. This principle will be clear, in my opinion. Section 16(2)(c) and the new clause AA which has been inserted under Section 16(2) not become operative as yet. These are absolutely unconstitutional. Next, the principle of revenue neutrality. Time and again, we raise this argument that because if I would have paid the tax, credit would have been available to me or to my buyer, and therefore there is no suppression on my part. Why should I suppress something if I can get the ITC or my buyer get the ITC? The law of revenue neutrality is not as simple as it looks, friends. From the earlier judgments where this law was accepted, this argument was accepted, we have now come a long way, and it is an uncertain future. One law is very well established that if a tax is payable under reverse charge, which has not been paid, this principle of revenue neutrality will definitely come into play, because I pay the tax in cash and I would have taken the credit. And there are umpteen number of judgments on this, that under reverse charge mechanism, if the credit is available to the party, taxpayer, then the charges of willful suppression cannot be raised against him. However, my buyer could have taken the credit and now I can issue him the debit note and pass on the credit. That cannot be the ground to successfully defend the extended period of limitation. In Mahindra and Mahindra, Supreme Court has even expressed the doubt over the correctness of the judgment in Emco Batteries case, that which says that if the credit is available to under captive consumption cases from one unit to another unit, why should I really hire Supreme Court? Why should I really evade the tax? Supreme Court says this may require some reconsideration. There is no final judgment on this. As of now, to summarize the legal position, if under reverse charge mechanism, suppose the tax demand is being raised, I can take the credit. And I could have taken the credit, then extended period cannot be invoked. If my another unit could have taken the credit, if I would have paid the higher amount of tax, then also suppression charges. This principle is already recognized under section 15 of the CGST Act, that there will not be any demand in case of the cross border transaction, the transfer between two units of the same company in two states. There will not be demand of the tax if the credit is available to the recipient unit. However, my buyer can take the credit, therefore there is no suppression on my part as a supplier. That principle is no longer valid, will not be a correct, it is not recognized. And finally, the burden of proof to establish the fraud or willful suppression will always be on the department first. Nobody in the law, it is a settled principle of law, a person cannot be asked to prove to the contrary. It is a settled principle. One cannot be asked to prove the contrary. And therefore, it is for the department first to prove that there is a willful suppression or misstatement of facts or fraud on part of the taxpayer. And then the onus will shift to the taxpayer to say that the department stand is incorrect and baseless. Next. Conclusion process of the proceeding. Next. Waiver of penalty in issue. Again, these provisions are also patterned on the erstwhile provision of Section 73 of Finance Act and Section 11A of the Central Excise Act. To sum in substance of this is, when any so-called notice or statement of demand is proposed to be issued under Section 73(1) or 73(3), instead of getting into the lengthy, costly, and time-consuming litigation, the legislature has provided this escape route to the taxpayer. Under this, whereby either on his own ascertainment, suppose during the audit of internal audit or by 9 or 9C, it is found by that some tax has been wrongly paid, not paid, or short paid, or ITC has been wrongly availed or wrongly utilized. If this is on ascertainment by the taxpayer, then he can make the payment of that tax with interest, or where it is ascertained by the proper officer before issue of the so-called notice, then he can make this payment with the interest. And in that case, if once this information is provided regarding the payment under 73(5) to the officer, the proper officer, if he finds that the tax has been correctly determined and paid by the party, he shall not show any notice or statement of demand at all, or penalty payable. In other words, this will be the closure of the proceedings. No penalty is also payable, and even in that case, even under one ascertainment also, this is under Section 73. This is the closure of the case. Next. However, if the notice is already issued, but taxpayer chooses to close the case by making the payment of interest with tax and interest, but within 30 days of the receipt of the notice, then also no penalty will be payable and the proceedings are deemed to be concluded. So therefore, the initial closure of proceeding will lie at two stages: before issue of the show cause notice and within 30 days of the show cause notice, where normal period of limitation is invoked under section 73. Next. However, there are exceptions to this, and this exception, this closure of proceeding option will not be available under section 73 if the tax not paid is a self-assessed tax. Self-assessed tax, it means whatever is declared under GSTR 1. If that is not paid, one cannot opt for this closure of proceedings. It is something which is in the income tax jargon, which has actually escaped the assessment, or something which is, which is not actually subjected to tax at all, but not due to reason of fraud, etc. Tax collected but not paid. A taxpayer has collected, supplier has collected the tax, but he has not paid. And if the tax which has been determined by him is payable through the returns, but he is not actually paid within 30 days of the due date of the payment. In all these three cases, he cannot simply go for the closure route. He will have to face the show cause notice and also the penalties also, depending upon the facts of the case. Next. In case of section 74, now this is one route where everything is settled before show cause notice. Coming to section 74, where there is a evasion of tax. Even there, the legislature has been kind enough to provide certain relief measures and avoid and giving an opportunity to taxpayer to avoid the litigation. One, if he pays it on his own ascertainment or as ascertained by the proper officer, but along with the penalty equivalent to 15%, then it is a closure of the proceeding. I always feel amused that how a taxpayer will come forward and say that I have evaded this tax, I had willfully suppressed, and now I have determined that this is the tax payable by me, so I am paying it with 15% penalty. It is extremely very strange. It is a copy-paste culture probably, that from section 73 we have adopted the same language. This was the same case even under service tax and excise. In case of evasion, the closure route was not allowed at all, total closure route. Here, the no notice can be issued if it is paid along with the 15% penalty. However, if the show cause notice has been issued already, then he can still choose to close the proceeding by paying the tax along with interest and penalty equal to 25%. Then all proceeding in respect of the notice are deemed to be concluded. If he actually misses that bus also, then he has got one more opportunity. After the order is passed, then within 30 days, if he actually pays the tax along with interest and 50% penalty, then also the proceedings are deemed to be concluded. So under section 74 evasion cases, the first is before show cause notice, pay tax with interest and 15% penalty, case is closed. If after show cause notice within 30 days, pay tax with interest with 25% penalty, case is closed. If after passing of the adjudication order, pay tax with interest with 50% penalty, case is closed. Next. Here, this judgment of the Bombay High Court should be kept in mind. In Viraj Alloys Limited, Supreme Court, Bombay High Court very clearly has said that if the time limit of 30 days, after show cause notice, suppose within 30 days I want to close the case, or after adjudication order within 30 days with a lesser penalty, I want to close the case. If that time limit of 30 days is missed, and if the amount is paid after 30 days, the benefit of closure of proceeding will not be available. And another thing is, in the context of section 73 and 74, the all proceeding in respect of the said notice shall not include proceeding under section 132. Wherever the expression used is proceedings are deemed to be concluded, there the penal proceeding under or prosecution proceeding under section 132 may lie. Please keep it in mind. Once the show cause notice is issued, and particularly under section 74, the closure benefit will be available, but penal action under section 132 and prosecution action under section 132, that benefit, that protection will not be available. One should keep it in mind. If it is settled before show cause notice, then there is no question. Then this explanation will not come into play. Next. this is suppression, as I said, okay, what the law is required you to declare, otherwise not. Next. Pre-notice consultation, I am sure Mr. Vinay Saraf must have taken that. So I am not touching on this. I have just included to in my presentation just to make it comprehensive. Otherwise, I am not touching on this. Next. Next. This is another last part, which I will finish in 5-10 minutes. Determination of tax. Next. Section 75 is titled as a general provisions relating to determination of tax. It contains 13 subsections, each representing different matter. And each subsection basically embodies certain time-tested provisions or time-tested principles of law. It is good, whether it is good or bad, whether this practice, how far it is useful and beneficial, of putting everything, when a principle of law is established by the court, why should it be put into the statute in the form of a provision? One can always debate upon it. There is it reminds me one of my very favorite quotations, that a great American witness is there, that if you have got a problem, all you have got to do is make a law. If there is any problem, then make a law to deal with that problem. That great American witness is also a great Indian witness. So maybe we could have avoided putting everything into the provisions as far as this section is concerned. But anyway, let us touch upon certain important subsections considering the today's subject. First, subsection 1 says, in computing the time limit, stay granted by any court or appellate tribunal against the service of notice or issuance of order, that should be excluded. Suppose court has stayed the proceeding, and it happens under interim relief sometimes, then for the purpose of issue of the so-called notice or order under section 7310 or section 7410, where the proper officer is required to pass the order within 36 months or 60 months, 3 years or 5 years. For that purpose, this time limit, while computing that time limit, period of stay shall be excluded. This was the similar provision which were available in the erstwhile law also, excise and service tax. This is standard. Next. So-called notice issued alleging evasion of tax by willful suppression held unsustainable by any appellate authority or appellate tribunal or court, proper officer to determine the tax as if the notice were issued under 73(1), normal period of limitation. This is very interesting. And this flows out from the certain judgments and the principles laid down, and legislature has taken some lesson from this. Suppose there is a demand, so-called notice invoking the 5 years time limit. Let us assume in 25, a so-called notice is issued for 2019-20. Let us assume within the 5-year period. Now, in that case, after consent, and friends, here, let me clear one more point. Let me clarify that the normal period of limitation and extended period of limitation are two not watertight compartments. It does not mean that first normal period of limitation gets over and then the extended period of limitation of 5 years will be available to the department. It is not like that. A person can be charged with the evasion even in respect of the yesterday's supplies, if there are credible evidences that he has deliberately resorted to the fraud or willful suppression, say last month only, 1 month before or 1 year before. Though it is under normal period of limitation, nothing stops the department from charging that person with the willful suppression and evasion. These are not two separate compartments. Evasion can be even within the normal period of limitation, and then the charges can lie. However, where actually evasion charges are made and extended period of limitation is invoked, in that case, if it is established and tribunal suppose holds in favor of the party that no, there is no evasion, however, the demand is sustainable on merit, and therefore it will be upheld only for the normal period of limitation. And this is the principle which is now recognized in form of subsection 2, that the proper officer shall now determine the demand as if the so-called notice was only issued for the normal period of limitation. The question that arises, whether in that circumstances, penalty will habitually is demanded of 10% of the tax amount under section 73, can it be imposed? From evasion charges, the demand has come down to normal period of limitation, extended period. Can the penalty follow? In my opinion, penalty cannot follow. Penalty can never automatically follow the demand. Here there was initially evasion charges, that has been not, those charges have been posted by the tribunal. Demand is upheld only for the normal period of limitation. It does not mean that any penalty which is prescribed for the normal period of demand will also be applicable in these type of cases also. In fact, I have my strong reservations that the 10% of penalty can be levied at all when the demand is only for the normal period of limitation with there is no mens rea or malafide on part of the taxpayer. That is something will have to be very seriously tested in the court of law. These provisions are analogous to section 76 of the Finance Act 1994, where 10% penalty was prescribed even for the normal demand for the normal period. I have my reservations about the validity of this penalty. In HMM Limited, Supreme Court has very clearly said, if the demand is held to be time barred, then no penalty can be imposed on the noticee. Same principle in Cohen Singh case. And therefore, the penalty cannot be imposed just because the demand is now getting confirmed for normal period. And lastly, this subsection, does the provision apply to refund erroneously granted in input tax credit? These are all couched under one word of the tax, with the intent to evade tax under section 74, and therefore this will be applicable. Next. I'll take only 5 minutes now. Subsection 3. Directions of the appellate authority or appellate or tribunal or court to issue an order to issue. Then, if there is any direction, in a given case, sometimes the appellate authority, that is first commissioner appeal, or the tribunal, or the court may issue the direction while remanding the matter to issue the order within by a fresh order. It is a remand case. This actually subsection provides all the remand case should be decided within 2 years from the communication of the directions. The remand case is generally what happens once the case is remanded, departmental authority lose all the interest into the remand cases. Nobody wants to touch this. So now this is actually made compulsory that within 2 years it has to be. However, if the tribunal or court or first appellate authority has provided a shorter period, then that shorter period will prevail. Then the officer cannot stretch it to 2 years. Suppose tribunal says, considering that the matter is long pending, or considering the recurring effect of the matter, the authority should redecide the matter, de novo adjudication within 3 months. Then the 3 months will prevail and not the 2 years will prevail. Subsection 8, modification by the appellate authority or appellate tribunal or court, if the tax which is originally demanded by SOCOS notice and which is ultimately adjudged and held to be payable by the first authority or by the first appellate authority, adjudicating authority or appellate authority, is reduced, it is varied, it is reduced by the tribunal, modified, then obviously interest and penalty will also be modified. Similarly, the original tax demand say is for 10 lakh of rupees and the adjudicating authority brought it down to say 8 lakh rupees. Tribunal commissioner department went in appeal against the dropping of the demand of 2 lakhs. Commissioner appealed the demand of 2 lakhs. Then again the interest and penalty will be payable on the 10 lakhs and not on the original 8 lakhs. So this provision will be applicable to both the sides depending upon whether the demand is reduced or demand is actually enhanced, but not obviously on the original amount. It cannot go beyond the original amount. Next. Subsection 9, it says whether order specifically make a mention or not that interest is also payable under section 50, the interest should be payable irrespective. There have been conflicting decisions that whether the SOCOS notice is required to be issued even for the recovery of interest. Now the law is settled, in my opinion, even SOCOS notice is necessary even for the interest also. Interest cannot. However, once the SOCOS notice is issued, but in the adjudication order, there is no mention about recovery of interest, though the demand of tax is confirmed, then this subsection 9 comes to the rescue of the department that it will be automatically payable. Subsection 10 says, and this is very, very unique provision, conclusion of proceedings if the order is not passed within the time limit specified under section 7310 or section 7410. As we have seen, the proper officer is under obligation to issue the order on a SOCOS notice within 3 years from the due date of furnishing of the annual return for the relevant financial year and within 5 years from the due date of furnishing in the relevant financial year annual return either under section 73 or section 74. Now, if he does not pass the order within this time limit, the entire proceedings are deemed to be concluded and the so cause notice will become nullity in law. This is a unique provision for the first time ever introduced in the context of the GST. It was never there in excise or service tax. And this should actually this should bring some sort of a, the certainty. Okay, yes, I will have, the matter will not remain, hanging for years and years. Today, we are also fighting the cases which are 20-year-old and 25-year-old. So here, this will bring some certainty. No doubt, High Court, Bombay High Court and other high courts have posted the so cause notice only on this ground of the delay in proceeding. But now there is an onus cast upon the authorities to conclude the proceeding once the so cause notice is issued within the time frame. And finally, subsection 11. This particular subsection 11 only says that in particular case, suppose in a similar proceeding on a similar issue, department is in appeal before the first commissioner appeal, first authority or tribunal or high court. And there the high court has, these authorities have given some judgment which is against the revenue. Department has gone for the further appeal. From first appellate authority to tribunal. Tribunal is not in existence, we will forget about it for the time being. So they have gone to GST tribunal, or they have gone to, from high court, tribunal, they have gone to high court, or from high court to the Supreme Court. But this is in another case for another taxpayer. Now for the similar issue, if there is a demand, dispute against the same dispute is raised against another taxpayer, then whatever time is taken by the department for obtaining for period spent between the date of decision of the authorities in another case, that time limit will not be computed. Come to next slide. Next slide. That time limit will not be computed for passing the order therein. It means that today a so cause notice is issued to taxpayer A on a particular issue. And let us assume the matter has gone to high court. First appellate authority went against department. Tribunal went against department. Department has gone to high court. Now, there is a similar dispute is raised by the department to B, against B also. And so cause notice has been issued. Now, in normal course, officer will be under obligation to pass the order against B within the time frame provided under 73 and 74, depending upon the case, 36 months or 60 months. This particular subsection comes to the rescue of the department, that because the department is in appeal against that high court order, then whatever time it is spending in another taxpayer's case, that will not be computed for passing the order. In other words, there is a call book concept. Today, due to paucity of time, I am not going into this call book. Tomorrow, I will touch upon this call book. There is a backdoor entry of this call book concept in the form of this provision. This is a one-sided provision. This benefit will not be available to the SSE on the ground that I am in appeal against the department order, or another fellow involved in the same activity facing the same dispute, he is also in appeal. This is purely for the department. Subsection 13, the last subsection, imposition of penalty under 73 or 74. If a penalty is imposed in terms of section 73 or 74, then on the same person, no penalty under any other provisions for the same offense can be imposed. This is basically double jeopardy. This is the principle of double jeopardy, that a person cannot be penalized twice for the same offense. One has to very carefully apply these provisions and see the effect of this provision in terms of subsection 13 vis-a-vis subsection 2 and 9 vis-a-vis 1 and 9. I'll touch upon this tomorrow, but otherwise, by and large, this is a beneficial provision whereby the double jeopardy and the dual penalties under different provisions is proposed to be avoided for the same offense on the same person. Last. Fine. So friends, this comes the total on this entire thing. I will only say this much, that litigation is unavoidable, maybe in excise, in GST, in indirect tax for that matter. What we can do is we can create the safeguards, we can create the protecting wall around our taxpayers, our clients. And one way is there is no estoppel in taxation. Even after a client having undertaken everything, having disclosed everything, but he can still be slave with the demand even for the normal period of limitation. You cannot avoid that. Client may have, even taxpayer may write to the department, putting his say in the matter, make the clearances. Department may not actually, the wake up for 1 year or 2 years. They do not respond to that. They allow the taxpayer to make the clearance in a particular manner on payment of particular amount of tax. After 2 years, the department can come back and they say that no, this was all wrong, and we are now actually of the view that you have short paid the tax. We cannot help it because the law provides for that. There is no estoppel in taxation. This principle is applicable for both. What we can do is we can save definitely our client from the hanging sword of the extended period of limitation. And this is important. We cannot afford our client to face the music of the extended period of limitation because it entails 100% penalty, evasion charges, not always. 100% penalty is another different thing, but yes, it will be invoked section 122, 100% penalty provision will come into play, and those charges, evasion charges, are always serious charges. And it also brings into picture the individuals also connected with the crime, so alleged to be committed by the taxpayer company. And therefore, don't take anything for granted. When you are in doubt, please do two things. When you are in doubt, examine the issue in right earnest, comprehensively, and come to the conclusion. If you feel that conclusion is not correct, or it may be debatable one, either you can seek the further course of action guidance from others and not from the department under any circumstances, and you can write to the department that we are doing this, and keep your client informed about everything. You should keep your client into trust, into the loop, that this is what the legal position could be. And so don't take things for granted. If necessary, write to the department, but don't ask for their consent, approval, or opinion. And another thing which you don't do is never go to advance authority. These two things you should do when you are in a doubt. For not going advance authority ruling, for 4 years I've been shouting from the roof. I'm very clear in my mind, because there are better ways of committing suicide. And therefore I would not go to the advance authority ruling. So this is now the overall thing.